Sahabat Klima, selamat sore. Jumpa kembali dengan KLIMATalk. Hari ini kita kedatangan tamu kita, Mr. Jorge Luis Vazquez-Aguirre. I hope that I pronounce your name correctly.
Almost, yes.
Yeah. Please, yeah, you can correct it.
That's all right. It's difficult to pronounce. The pronunciation is Jorge Luis Vazquez-Aguirre. It's a Spanish name.
Jorge Luis Vazquez-Aguirre.
Vazquez-Aguirre. I'm from Mexico, but we speak Spanish there, and then
the Spanish name. Yes. Ya, kita berbahagia sekali bisa kedatangan Mr. Jorge Luis dari WMO Expert Team on Climate Information for Decision Making, member of KLIMATalk Team. Ini adalah sebuah tim di dalam WMO, tim ahli yang mentransformasi dari bagaimana merubah informasi iklim didekatkan kepada pengambilan keputusan. Karena kita tahu dalam aksi mitigasi dan adaptasi perubahan iklim, semua rencana aksi pengurangan emisi gas rumah kaca dan juga semua langkah-langkah adaptasi itu harus berbasiskan data. So, Jorge Luis, we are very happy this afternoon we have you here. So I will have some question for you. Can you explain briefly about yourself and also your responsibility in your team that you are in it?
Yes, of course. Thank you. My background is in atmospheric science and atmospheric physics and climatology. And I have been working with the World Meteorological Organization as part of the technical commission since more than 10 years ago. The WMO has recently undergone a process of reform, conforming mainly two commissions. We work as part of the Services Commission. And in the Services Commission, there are several expert teams. Some of them belong to the Standing Committee on Climate Services, and one of those is the Expert Team on Climate Information for Decision Making, which is the one I belong to with other scientists of the world. There we are committed and should care about bringing climate information into decision-making processes. And for that, we use all the tools that are available and also that we develop in partnership with the WMO. That is the case of a tool that it is known as KLIMATalk, which is a software freely available for the calculation of more than 60 climate indices that allow us to know how the climate has been changing in the recent past and present. The KLIMATalk software has been developed in Australia at the University of New South Wales under the direction of Professor Lisa Alexander, who is one of the co-chairs of our expert team.
Okay. So, does it KLIMATalk stand for climate impact or?
Yes, because this KLIMATalk tool calculates the climate indices, but also is designed to explore the potential relationships with sectoral data. Let's say, for example, for agriculture, water, or health. If we have data from those sectors, such as crop yields, production, frequency or amount of diseases, water levels, etc., then KLIMATalk allows us to calculate the correlations with the more than 60 climate indices, and then find out if the behavior in the sectoral data might be directly related to the climate change.
Climate variability. Ya, jadi teman-teman, Mr. Jorge Luis ini, beliau adalah salah satu di dalam expert team WMO. Tadi sudah dijelaskan oleh beliau bahwa tim ini berada di bawah Service Commission, yaitu Komisi untuk Layanan Iklim, ya, Climate Service Commission, yang di dalamnya ada dua tim, yaitu Standing Commission yang pertama, yang kedua adalah Expert Team. Di dalamnya ada beberapa expert team. Nah, Mr. Jorge Luis berada di salah satu tim, yaitu tim yang bertugas untuk tadi menyusun konsep bagaimana climate information atau information iklim itu bisa digunakan langsung dalam pengambilan keputusan oleh para pengambil kebijakan di negara-negara yang berada di bawah WMO. My next question is that you mentioned that this climate information produced from the climate data exactly using the so-called KLIMATalk tools can be directly used by the users or stakeholders or the or policymakers to make something in their decision. Can you mention what type of climate information content should be provided so that it can be meaningful for adaptation decision making?
Yes, thank you for the question. Well, as you know, there is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is conformed by more than 190 countries, more than 190 members. It is known as the IPCC. And this intergovernmental body periodically produces assessment reports. They do not make science. They report what the scientific community has found very recently. Then the IPCC reports are the authoritative voice on what has happened and what is happening to the climate system. And they have declared in their last assessment report that climate change is unequivocal, and that it is attributable to human activities related to the greenhouse emissions. Well, but that is another discussion, the attribution. What we know is that the climate change is unavoidable, is going to happen, and it is going to impact all the human activities, the societal and economic activities. And then that make us that put us in a position that we call the adaptation imperative, because whether we like it or not, we will have to adapt. We'll have to adapt to the changing climate. For that, we need information, and that information can come from different sources and at different scales. We know that the global temperature has been rising to unprecedented levels in recent decades, but that is for the entire planet. But then we wonder what is happening where we live.
Yeah.
In each one of the places where we develop our activities, what has happened? And for that, we need measurements of the climate variables. And CLIMATalk uses precipitation and temperature, maximum and minimum temperature, daily data, to calculate the changes or assess the changes in the climate extremes. Then those measurements are very important. It is very important to keep the monitoring of the climate system so that we can know what is happening and in which direction the climate is behaving. If it is still normal, as our parents or as we in our previous years know the climate, or if it has changed and it is going in a different direction, that will impact our activities. So the information that is needed for adaptation includes the observations and also a detailed description of the changes that are detected in the observations, the trends, and of course they are complemented with the projections for the future.
For the future, yeah. So why it is only for temperature and precipitation? Because these two are the main climate change indicator.
That is because in order to evaluate the magnitude of the temperature increase globally, we need measurements of temperature all around the globe.
Yeah.
Then temperature is one of the most measured variables, along with precipitation. They are measured nearly everywhere in the planet. And for the purpose of comparisons between different areas of the world and of the integration of a global record, then we need to use variables that are measured everywhere. And that's the case of precipitation and temperature.
Yeah.
But for example, if we think of another variable such as humidity or wind speed or others, they are not necessarily available globally. And that is why the most frequently measured variables are used to produce the indices.
Okay. Temperature and precipitation.
And precipitation, yes.
Ya, jadi tadi sudah dijelaskan oleh Pak Jorge Luis bahwa kita ini berada dalam sebuah kondisi di mana perubahan iklim itu sudah sesuatu yang sangat nyata. Pemanasan global sudah terjadi dan dilaporkan berada pada level yang mengkhawatirkan. Ini menunjukkan perubahan pemanasan global, perubahan suhu udara permukaan yang disebut sebagai pemanasan global juga memicu perubahan iklim. Dan itu paling tampak kepada dua indikator, yaitu indikator temperatur dan juga indikator curah hujan. Dan indikator temperatur dan curah hujan tadi dijelaskan oleh Pak Jorge Luis bahwa itu karena hampir semua tempat di dunia ini memiliki pengukuran terhadap temperatur dan curah hujan tersebut. How can climate data and information be best presented to stakeholders, including to a non-technical user community? We know that maybe many of us, they don't exactly know how to read the analysis from the climate data. How can we make this easier to everybody? Yeah.
Certainly, that's a big challenge for climate information producers. But we need to take into account various aspects. The first one is we need to make sure that we and our users know what can be considered the normal climate. And that is usually the long-term mean, the long-term average in a climate variable. And the normal climate is what we expect. After that, we need to know how what we call the anomalies, which is the deviations from that normal are behaving, so that we know how far from the normal we are. But after that, and that is where the climate indices that whose use is promoted now by the World Meteorological Organization and the Green Climate Fund jointly, as in the workshop we are having these days here in Indonesia, is information about the climate extremes. Because climate change is not a fact that will translate into warming everywhere. The actual meaning of climate change is changes in the frequency, intensity, and duration of the climate extremes. But that also means not only the warm extremes, but also the cold extremes, not only the wet, heavy precipitation extremes, but also the drought and the lack of precipitation. Changes in all directions, changes in the extremes, that's the meaning of climate change. And then for the stakeholders to get a sense of what is happening, what we can do is to pick a case of an extreme that had an important impact, and then build a storyline and describe precisely what happened, how far from the normal behavior that extreme was, but also by assessing the historical information, provide some information on what can we expect in terms of that specific type of extreme. If they are increasing, decreasing, if they are becoming more frequent or not. However, presenting this information to stakeholders is a big challenge because it has to be put in a simple way, in short statements, accompanying the information with plots and figures might be helpful as well. But the strategy consists in delivering short, key messages from the findings that we get from analyzing the observational records. Also, we mentioned before that the historical information has to be complemented with future projections. But projections are not predictions. We are not in the position to say exactly what will happen in 2 or 3 decades. We can only make projections and see what is the potential future under different pathways that the society might take in terms of continuing or regulating or stopping the greenhouse emissions. Then we need to provide the stakeholders with the assessment of the present and the different possible futures that might happen. It's a big challenge, but it is possible. And I have to say that this is a process of co-production where a dialogue is needed between the stakeholders and the climate information producers, the Met services, the community. But it has to be an iterative process. It cannot be a process that happens in only one direction. It needs to be an interactive process where the stakeholders tell the climatologists what information is needed and what is needed to understand completely the meaning of the climate information. And in turn, the climatologist must have enough openness to then modify the information delivery format so that the user could get exactly what is needed to be interpreted and then transform it into strategies of climate action so that we provide our societies with capabilities for adaptation.
Tadi menarik sekali bahwa ternyata ada yang dikenal dengan istilah adaptation imperatif ya, bahwa ini menunjukkan bahwa suka tidak suka kita perlu beradaptasi terhadap iklim yang sudah jelas-jelas berubah berdasarkan data dan fakta dari data-data pengukuran indikator perubahan iklim maupun juga dari tanda-tanda perubahan iklim lainnya. Kemudian juga untuk membawa bahwa data-data iklim itu tidak sekedar tumpukan angka, tetapi juga sampai kepada kebijakan yang diterapkan secara nasional atau bahkan internasional, maka perlu dilakukan beberapa hal atau perlu dipahamkan beberapa hal. Yang pertama adalah bahwa hasil-hasil riset, penelitian, analisis dari semua yang dikaitkan dengan perubahan iklim itu harus membawa message yang jelas, ya, clear message, short message, tetapi jelas pesannya. Kemudian yang berikutnya itu harus bisa ditunjukkan dalam bentuk yang sangat mudah dipahami, kemudian mencakup juga informasi yang komprehensif, tidak hanya berbicara tentang perubahan yang telah terjadi, tetapi juga di dalam climate projection atau proyeksi iklim itu berbicara tentang potensi apa yang masa depan itu akan terjadi. Nah, ini hal yang menarik dan itu harus dilakukan secara proses yang iteratif, artinya it's not only one process ya, but maybe it's iterative, need 1 to 3 times process cycle, something like that. Yeah. Okay, that is interesting. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very wonderful time to have you here, so that we can now know that the importance of climate data, climate information related to the climate action in a national level or in global level. Even though it's also in community level, huh?
Yes, yeah. Definitely.
Oke, sahabat KLIMATalk, terima kasih banyak. Kita berjumpa lagi di KLIMATalk yang akan datang. Terima kasih Pak Louis. Thank you very much for your coming.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Selamat sore, bye-bye.